Today's episode of the Outline Podcast is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering the listeners of this podcast one free month and one free audiobook. You can redeem this by going to www.audibletrial.com/outlinepod. Once again, to get your free audiobook and 30 days free, go to www.audibletrial.com/outlinepod. This episode is also brought to you by Vinyl Me Please, the best record of the month club ever. With your membership, you get exclusive LPs, original art prints, custom cocktail recipes, and access to tons of member exclusives. You can join by going to www.joinvmp.com/outlinepod. Let's start the show!
The outline, with Kevin Dwayne, the outline, with Kevin Dwayne, this is the outline, with Kevin Dwayne, Kevin Dwayne, with Kevin Dwayne.
What's going on, you guys? It's the Outline Podcast with Kevin Dwayne. Thank you so much for joining me for another show. Today is a very special show. Not only is it the show before I go to Barcelona, which I'm excited about, but I have my best friend who I've spoken about for like the last year and a half on the show today. He holds the title of best friend, but then also journalist and author, has a book coming out, and I'm super proud. Garrett Kennedy is on the show today. Hi, Garrett.
Hello. Oh my gosh. I'm so honored. It's about time, boo.
Listen, I'm honored. When you came to me, you were like, so, let's go with this podcast. I was like, oh, you want to be on it. Okay.
Well, I also feel like you were like waiting on like a topic that would make sense for me. I think you're waiting a bit, mostly also because you know people be watching what I say on these public forums. So I think you were also being protective as well.
Absolutely, because when we get to flowing, it's dangerous, So
Dangerous.
And then also, I think from the beginning of our friendship, I've always kind of considered like us just being friends and not always crossing, the professional line of like,
Right.
I always thought about, okay, Garrett's trying to have a break. He ain't trying to talk about, work and stuff like that. So I've always considered that. So when you came to me and was like, hey, what's up with this podcast? I said, oh, definitely come through. Let's do this. So it's actually a great occasion, I think, because of the book and everything that's going on.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later in the show, but super proud of you, bro.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, means so much.
Oh my God, it's life. So let's jump right in with all the bullshit, as I call it, which is just a pop culture conversation. There's quite a few things happening, but I noticed that this weekend was lighter than the other weekends, and that's because everything's being crowded with, Trump stuff and all the sexual assaults and stuff like that. So it's making pop culture a little thin. One thing that has been big, especially with the Black community, is She's Gotta Have It has been remade into a series on Netflix. And I got a chance to see it. Have you seen any of it yet?
I've watched, I'm about half. I'm trying to pace myself. But I want to just watch all of it, but I'm about halfway through, yes.
That was actually my issue because that was my favorite Spike Lee movie next to Crooklyn.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
School Days comes in really close too.
Right.
But She's Gotta Have It was just one of those films you're like, wow, he really took it there in 86, And for them to be able to recreate this in today's time and have it not miss a beat seemed pretty amazing. And also, I miss Insecure. So anytime I see a Black female doing it on the show, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get this all in right now.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff. So what do you think so far with what you've seen already?
I had been really concerned about what the show would end up being for a couple of reasons. Spike is one of my favorite directors of all time. I will definitely say that to the public now, because the next thing I've got to say is not so kind. Oh. He has, I think he has struggled the last couple of years I could stretch this back to maybe the last decade. I think he struggled a little bit with um, how he will still exist in this space. And by that space, I do mean, just in general. The last couple of films have felt eh, really, really muddied.
Mm,
The Sweet Blood of Jesus, I honestly thought it was one of the worst things I had ever seen. Red Hook Summer has this really weird twist that is so abusive to the viewer that it just made me question, like, where is Spike right now? Where is he coming from?
right.
So, hearing that, was going to adapt, She's Gotta Have It, which is my all-time favorite film of his. I was excited, but I was also concerned. So I was really excited, to watch the first episode and it be what I would hope it would be, which is a really current, contemporary update that is faithful to the spirit of what that film was, but also is tackling, what it means to be, Black, female, sex positive in 2017. I thought that's really powerful. Obviously, I haven't seen all of it, but there are some things that I would like to see from it. But I don't know if he's going to tackle it, but I'm also not asking for a spoiler from you, Kevin. But I just think that I do think that, with a story like Nola, I don't want to watch this whole season and then we just pretend as if there's going to be zero queer influence, which is sort of kind of my issue with a lot of his work, where I don't feel like I have a space to exist in Spike's eyes. And so when you're giving me, a young sex positive woman in Brooklyn, I'm sorry, it can't just be three dudes. You know what I mean? Like that to me,
Mm,
that just it feels, even if that's the case, I'm not, not to take away from what Nola's journey is, but even if that's the case, you got a gay friend, you got some, you know what I mean? Like, so there's somebody.
right.
So I haven't seen any of that now. So it's just something that just lingers in the background for me. But I could be wrong. I could be overreacting.
Got it. Well, that's actually no, that's a very fair criticism, especially when it comes to updating, and that makes me think of like Will and Grace. You notice how when they brought the show back, they have included so much of what we do today, and I thought that was very smart writing.
Yeah.
Like how they're dealing with the new president, and then how they're dealing with sexuality, and
Right.
also getting older. Like I love how they did the play on Will and Jack, how they're older men now in the gay club, and we all know it can get a little tough as you get older.
Right.
And I'm glad they tackled that, because it does become this: how do I make myself look younger, or do I want to be somebody's daddy, or do I want all this? And
Yeah.
so it's very important to consider that. So I think you're spot on when you speak about Spike updating with today's culture. What I
Yeah.
will say though, I pay attention to every show, the credits. I notice that it's a different writer and sometimes director on every episode.
Right on everyone. Yeah. Yeah. Is that something that, let me ask you this. Is that something that bothers you?
Sometimes when I see it, I think I set a bias because I feel like the feel is going to change.
Right.
However, I noticed that sometimes it still works, because even with Insecure, I know it's different writers for every episode. Like it'll just be like it'll be a male this week, it'll be a female the next week, and you're like, oh, how is that going to change the slant?
Yeah.
And then Queen Sugar also, Ava has different directors every episode too, and
Yeah.
so you start wondering like, okay, is it going to feel different? But it's still, I notice that it's still faithful to the
It
brand.
still moves the same. It still moves the exact same. It doesn't change. That's something that, even I don't know if you've checked out Being Mary Jane at all, but that's something that show has, a like Queen Sugar has a very particular look,
Yeah.
and it doesn't change despite having different directors, and sometimes like really famous directors, where it's like, oh, you've got like Regina King like doing this episode, and it hasn't changed at all from the way that it moves.
Right. And so I appreciate it. Now, I know on the writing front, I always kind of try to figure that out too. And I know typically these shows have writing groups. So someone kind of leads with an idea and they kind of build upon it there. And I think that kind of helps with congruency.
Right.
But it does, I always kind of, especially with Insecure, because that show is very, I think, female centered, which I love about it. And so sometimes my fear is some guy's gonna come in there and just change the whole dialogue. You're like, wait a minute, how did where we get the fuck boys from?
Right.
And so, but it is also, it's interesting in comparison. I've noticed a lot more shows of today use that format. but I enjoy it. But yeah, she's got to have it. Yeah, certainly keep watching. Of course, with anything there's going to be heavy criticism, but I realize it's coming from people who haven't seen the movie, and I don't know how I feel about that. Like,
Yeah, I was having that conversation with a friend who was like, "Well, I don't really know if I like this," and I'm like, "Well, did you see the original?" And it was like, "Oh, I had no idea." But it was a movie which I like. I mean, that fact is hard to miss, but whatever. Some people just aren't as plugged in. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to take myself out of loving the film so much and trying to pretend as if I stepped into this without having ever seen it, if I would enjoy it. And I don't know if my answer is yes.
mhm.
I don't think my answer is yes. I definitely think that you have to have, if you haven't seen the original film, you at least have to be knowledgeable of Spike's style, or
Yeah.
else you watch this having no concept of what you're watching.
Exactly. And then, especially with the characters, people have the biggest criticism about the characters, Mars and Greer, obviously, for how they are. And I'm like, you have to see the movie, though. You have to see Spike's interpretation of Mars to get how annoying he was in that film.
Right.
What I will say, though, I love the new Mars. The new Mars actually has a sex appeal about him.
He does.
And no
He
shade
does.
to Spike,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the same when Spike played the character. It was very much, he was just the nerdy dude that she was just, throwing some pussy to.
Right.
And so now it's like, oh, actually, he's kind of swagged out. And I actually like him a lot more with this guy who's playing, his name Anthony Ramos, I believe his name is,
Yeah.
who's playing him. And it's funny, he's also in Will and Grace, which I thought was funny.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he works in Grace's firm. He's the guy that Karen harasses.
Oh.
Yeah, that was him. And I was like, oh, come through for this look change. So something else that happened in the last few days is the launch of the Escape Still Kicking It tour.
Mhm.
Have you been watching the show?
I have been watching the show. I love the show. Um, I have a lot of fun watching this show, and mostly I love watching the delusion of everybody who's not Candy treat Candy as if she's not the reason that they're here right now. And it's actually the most enjoyable thing because I keep looking back to, like, you remember how incredible that episode of Unsung was, where they finally got into the details of the story. And so when you're hearing that, how much Candy has held on to, I mean, it was a lie. I mean, and,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, Candy has been lied on a lot. as
Listen, that's
we
like a theme in her life. It's crazy.
watch these shows. And so I just think it's really interesting to see this animosity toward her for continuing to make things happen for herself, even
Mhm.
though, I mean, before Housewives, our identity of Candy was still really attached to either, yeah, there was a solo project that did really well, but also like her songwriting with Tiny. So it's this really interesting thing where the other two ladies aren't upset with Tiny, but they're still so mad at Candy, even though Tiny was right there with her getting those Destiny's Child and TLC checks. But whatever. So it's just really interesting to see them try to come back in this moment. And I get where Candy's coming from, where it's like, look, like I want to just test the waters, see if a couple of shows maybe can work. I don't know if I can do an album with y'all. I don't know if I trust y'all like that, but I'm at least willing to try. And so that's as us who are like fans of like the 90s and especially like the groups that came out in that era, and Escape was like one of the big ones for all of us, who are fans of that era. It's like really cool to see, but can we just stop shading Candy like this, because it's not fair.
Seriously, it's not at all. And I feel like even the fans are kind of like, oh, why won't Candy cooperate? And I've said this in the last two shows, but it's kind of like, y'all don't even like y'all co-workers, but y'all want people to put together full ass albums for you.
a full album, a full album.
like Latavia and Beyonce just supposed to get along just so we can have this. And like it's just like these people have actual like grudges, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's actual pain there. We have it in our families, and we spend a lot of close time with people. There's friends that we had previously that we have hard pains about with unsolved problems. So it's hard to just come together and be like, oh yeah, let's do it like it used to be. It's hard to do that. And yeah, it is pretty much all about Candy now. And I think they didn't expect that. Anytime someone that and like it's all legit, I get it. But anytime you bully someone and then they end up kind of becoming stronger than you and you have to kind of humble yourself to them, it's a problem.
Right.
And you can see that in Tasha and Tamika's faces all the time because Candy's kind of running it.
She is.
Hell, it's
I
not
mean,
even kinda. Because I saw them on Good Morning America and said, "Oh, we're doing Good Morning America? Okay."
right, right. And how do y'all think y'all got that? Well, outside of the fact that you guys have incredible management,
Listen,
incredible representation, like let's not even play. Like let's not. I won't even sit there and pretend. Like yeah, I mean, Candy is a great ingredient here, but like they came back and they came back really strong, which I really appreciate, and also taking it very serious, which I think is that last thing that a lot of groups, I'm not naming nobody, but a lot of groups who come back after a long time, they forget that point because I think some of them still believe, well, the hunger for us is still there. And it's like, yes, I'm not going to deny that first album you dropped 18 years ago still slaps and I still listen to it. But if you're trying to get me to come to your show and you playing the Wilshire Eagle or Stars on Brand or these venues that I don't go to on a regular basis, and this ticket situation is seeming shady, I don't know if I'm a go. Or if I gotta come see you and it's like on a cruise, I don't want to do a whole cruise just to hear these 4 songs. And I don't want to go all the way to New Orleans to go to the big ass Superdome to see you in a small room inside the big ass Superdome. Catch me when you're on BET. Catch me when you're on BET. Catch me when you're gonna have a mini series or one of those things on Lifetime or something, which I will absolutely watch and pull out the album. But I don't know if I gotta go as far as like, you want me to buy a ticket to a show? Well, I don't know because I don't see y'all on Instagram or Twitter or nothing rehearsing. At least Escape is like, look, we out here trying to do, a couple of these little things. Good Morning America was a mess, but y'all were there. Y'all tried. And that's enough for me. And I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this tour. I feel like I failed to say that. I'm super excited for this tour. I mean, the supporting acts is like a dream. Like I'm like ready to live an entire night.
a dream.
It really is.
I
It
want to
really
see it, but they're doing it on New Year's here, and I mean, I can't.
you ain't now see. I just gave y'all all this credit, and you're not trying to win. Don't do. You about to get me sidetracked. Don't do shows on New Year's Eve, Christmas Day. Don't do that because you know what? Look, all of these holidays aren't important to me. They're not. I won't sit here and pretend like I care about New Year's Eve. But what I do care about is I care about the traffic.
Yeah.
So I don't be stuck trying to get into your show and then it's just kind of weird. Like, so are you gonna like stop the show or do like a fake countdown? Because remember when Beyonce played them at the win, it was like, I'm about to do this countdown at like 11:40. Like it's not, but you're not about to fuck up the flow because I do countdown. So you're not about to mess up the run of this show because we can just pretend you came to see me. You didn't come to like clock in New Year's. Like that's not something that matters to you. But I don't think Escape is somebody who I want to see on New Year's.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I was frustrated because it's their Atlanta show. And I get
Right.
it, you want to be big, but like you said, traffic's already bad in Atlanta on a regular Monday.
Yeah.
So being downtown is just a no-go. Like they
It's
still,
just enough.
yeah, they still have other events. And so it just turned me off. And I wanted to go see, like you said, it's a dream. Like Tamar, Monica, and Escape. What?
Hey. And do y'all have June's Diary on one of y'all shows or do you not?
Listen, do they?
I don't know because you know how I feel about June's Diary. You know how hard I want this to happen.
I wanted to too, but it's like we're going on what, 2 years? It feels like.
It's been a little minute. It's been a little minute. It's been a little minute. But speaking of though, this backstage action, like, so what do you think the conversations are like backstage? Like when Tamar sees Tiny, or when Tamar sees Monica, or when Monica sees either one of them. Like, how do you think? What you think that's like?
Well,
How close are their dressing rooms?
Listen, they're nowhere near each other. In fact, some of them still getting dressed in the bus. Because guess what? You may be a solo act, but you're still an opening act on this tour, okay?
Okay.
But honestly, Monica is the one who's the least pressed, because she always is.
Right.
Monica she's the grown woman who's always very much like, I'm not dealing with this, and that is what it is. So that's why she got her kids with her, so she can always divert to them, and that's fine. But I feel like Tamar, if anybody was gonna be petty, it would be her.
Okay.
But then you ask how? So are her and Tiny still at odds?
I mean, listen. You listen. Because when there's never really a conversation publicly, but you've put beef out publicly, I'm gonna just always assume that there's beef. Now, don't let that beef stop you from getting money, which I applaud everybody here for doing.
Cause
But
listen, it's a brawl at that damn venue. Okay,
okay,
everybody got something that they can pull some hair out about.
okay, so that's just my whole thing. I just feel like when you put it out there that there's some kind of a little situation, and I think Tamar wasn't she on I feel like she did Wendy or something, and she tried to clean it up a little bit, where it was
Yeah,
just, oh, I was a little tripping a little bit. Cool, 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 cool. You also do know though that you got to clean that up because I wouldn't have beef with Monica. Okay, what about Monica gives any of y'all the impression that she's gonna be the one? What is it about Monica that lets y'all think, you know what? I'ma try her. I'ma I'ma talk reckless about Monica, who first of all is everything. I'll just go ahead and say that. Secondly, like the entire industry loves. But look, I'm never gonna forget when Brandy said we was at Six Flags and she had to gather me. I'm never gonna forget it. 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 Never
you
gonna forget
you
it.
can't like listen. She said sometimes you gotta fight because her mouth too slick. Y'all gotta pay attention
Okay.
to this. Like, but listen, but that tour though looks like it's gonna be lit, and so I believe it just started. So I saw some clips, and the clips look really good. Everybody is on their stuff. Tamar, Monica, the outfits. She finally got rid of those see-through pants she kept wearing at those shows we saw.
Okay.
Because listen, we saw Monica a couple times. Like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. But I love that was probably one of my favorite sets. Actually, was Monica's set. Like, it's just the memories and the hits that are there, and you just can't. It's undeniable. But Escape sounded really good, very well rehearsed. I was very impressed, and now I'm kind of sad that I won't be seeing them here. At least I might have to, do a little two step to another state so I can see them live because it looks like a really good show. Their set reminds me of like how the set looks. It reminds me of the Mary J. Blige "Music Is My Life" or "Music
Right.
Saved My Life" tour. It looks like that because I remember how that was one of my favorite shows, by the way. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. Have you seen any clips of it?
I watched a couple shaky clips.
Oh,
Uh, no, Kevin, the camera work was shaky. The vocals was tight. The vocals was tight. Everything I'm gonna say is not gonna be shady tonight. Um, I do really like the production level from what I've seen. Looks really good. Um, I think I'm like a week behind on the Bravo show, so I'm still sort of kind of in the storyline of what we're arguing about a set list. So I am very interested to see what the set list for the tour becomes because some of them was having different impressions for how hard some of these songs slap. Like let's not come out here with no ballad. Like
listen.
let's not start with no ballad. And let's just do this. Cool. All right, you know what? I understand, Tasha, the point that she's making about just kicking it as a signature song. Who the hell says y'all can come out with that and end with that and do it 8 more times that night? Who says you can't
Who
do it?
says you
Okay?
can't? Who
Who
says you
says you can't
cannot?
do it? Because when I was at Watch the Throne, Jay-Z and Kanye did Niggas in Paris 15 times, back to back to back, and we all got our life. And at that point, the song had only been out a year. I mean, I could listen to this kicking over and over and over if you really want to give it to me.
Cause
If that's what you
that's
want to do.
true. Cause listen, if Beyonce did Formation 4 times, I would be here for it. I would just do it
Okay?
again. Do it again.
Just do
It's
it
an
again.
interlude. We'll do it as an
Run it
interlude
back.
too.
Run it back.
I'm so speaking of tours, so with shows, I know we have shared a lot of shows together. So let's
Oh,
talk about some of our faves. I mentioned earlier that Mary was one of my all-time fave shows. I think it's
yes.
because of the catalog.
Yes.
And then also Janet was the same.
Yes.
Whereas like the catalog, we were standing the entire time. It's probably one ballot you
Absolutely.
sit for.
Absolutely.
Let's see what other ones were great. I enjoyed Maxwell and Joe Scott. That was a great
Maxwell and
show.
Jill Scott was a good one. we never really got to see like a real Brandy show. I mean, we got a club Brandy show, which that's the moment she was in at the time. But we got our lives. We
Listen,
did,
absolutely got our lives at that one. I still have
we
that
did,
picture.
we did get our lives. Who else did we go? I feel like did we go see Usher together?
Yep, we saw
I
Usher.
think we go see Usher together. You
So,
know what? We saw Gaga when she was still so bomb. Not that she's not anymore, but I'm just saying, like, when
but no,
people like
that was like a really peak
our pop
moment.
hadn't happened yet, so we
Yeah,
haven't really been like, oh, we don't really fuck with her no more. But at that moment, like, oh my god, the show was just so good,
it
so
was. I remember how it was crazy because the entire place was in costume, and I remember
right.
being like, "Wow, these are really committed ass
and
fans."
and not just committed in like a sold out show, but it was like the 45th time that she had been in LA on that same tour. I was like, okay, girl, you still got us coming here to see.
Listen, that was a very interesting show for
Yeah.
sure. Let's see, another one was Erica Badu. I enjoyed that one when she was at the Greek.
Oh yes.
That was a cute little number once she finally got on stage, child. Because
Once we
these older girls.
But what's interesting because it's been obviously a couple of years since you've been gone, but these places that we used to go, it's really I find it really interesting to see how some of these venues have changed over. Like obviously House of Blues doesn't exist anymore, so a lot of that like BC level like R&B, if they can't pack Microsoft Theater, which was what was it when you were here? Nokia Theater.
Nokia Theater.
Then they play, Club Novo, which was Club Nokia. We see so much, all this change, boo. So it's interesting to see now, because I love House of Blues. Like House of Blues to me, it's a certain feeling. There's a spirit there. There's a history there. So seeing that venue like leave was like really, really sad. But another thing on the flip side of that is seeing how popular a lot of Black music has gone since. I mean, 5-6 years ago, it's just a totally different thing. And so now going to the Hollywood Bowl all the time to see, Black music, which is a place that you hardly ever went. You might go once every 3 years and you're seeing Diana Ross, or you're seeing Patti LaBelle, or you're seeing Smokey. You're going to see
But
something
Garrett,
that a lot of white people are
How
going
about
to be
this,
at.
Garrett? I've never been inside the Hollywood Bowl.
And that's crazy. You are from here. And
Yep.
as long as you've been here, and like, so, and I mean, a couple weeks back, I was there 4 times in 1 week.
I saw
Like
that. Yeah, it
it
was a good
just
week.
it's just unheard of to see, Maxwell and Raphael Sadiq there, Lauryn Hill and Nas there, Janet playing there, Chance the Rapper playing there, Solange playing there. I mean, it's so interesting to see the change for that because I mean, even when you were back out here, Gibson, that's another venue where it was
Hmm.
those artists who could comfortably sell 6 or 7 thousand, but they can't swing 15. That's where they played. But now those artists who can sell that 6 7 thousand, there's really no place for them to play because that place is gone. And yeah, there's Microsoft Theater, but a lot of them like aren't playing. They're not booking Microsoft Theater. It's really interesting to see what is happening. Like on one end, it's like super big and super popular for like a lot of the hip hop stuff, of course, but then like R&B, I think, is taking these huge hits. And if you're not going to play at a small club, you just not booking no show here.
No, and I mean, so they're still doing are they still doing shows like at the El Rey and all those other smaller
You
spots?
get El Rey, yeah. So that's all that all plays into like that 2,000 seat venue, which actually I don't even think El Rey is 2,000. It might be smaller than that. So you're hitting those spots, but it's just like what happens when like I just think SZA was here recently, and like she did one night at Club Novo, and then she came back like a month later and did another night there. But it was just like I wonder if it would have made more sense to book her at Microsoft Theater where there's 7,500 seats. Like, would that have made more sense? Do they still feel like that's still too much? Because between those two shows, you've already done like close to 4,500, I guess, or something around that. So it's just really interesting to see what they give to like
Each
the R&B
artist.
side of it, because the hip hop, they will, hey, look, okay, you got one song out, one hit, well, why don't you go ahead and play Staples Center or the Forum? Like they will, they'll book these huge arenas, and everybody can't fill up those huge
And
arenas.
what's funny is the Forum is after me, the re-up, since they changed it over. I've not been into the new
Yeah,
Forum.
so you
Like,
haven't even
remember we saw Prince there. And that was
Yeah,
but that was before the change. But that was crazy because it's like,
the old seats, honey.
yeah, exactly. But that was the last person I saw there, was Prince, and that was what, 2011. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
2011. I haven't been there since they've revamped it, and I hear it's fabulous.
it's so nice. And actually, that's what they now call it the Fabulous Forum because they are living up to that name.
Listen,
I
I
just
would have
saw
loved to go to a venue in the hood, okay? Because I always had to drive somewhere.
that's still the problem though. There's like really nothing to eat there. Like I'm not going to Sizzler. Like who? I'm not going to Sizzler
You
for
don't want
stuff.
no cheesy bread.
I do, but I want to go to Sizzler on a Sunday where I done smoked and I have no other plans or commitments because I'm going to be laid out on the couch in a food coma after I have the Sizzler. So trying to go to a show is just like, well, that's not going to work.
Listen,
It's just not going to work.
there was an article saying that people were parking in the cemetery.
They do when it gets too full. That's where they put you. So I was probably like 45 minutes late to the weekend when he played the Forum, and they had us at the cemetery in this little golf cart, like pushing all over, and then they drop you off, like not even in the parking lot of the Forum. So I'm like, I still got to walk all the way across here. Well, this didn't really benefit me at all, did it? I guess that's being late. Guess that's what I get for being late.
Listen. We had plenty of those nights. I remember when we went to go see Glee, but it was like we had hella. Well, because the thing about it is, so the listeners can understand, Garrick is a music writer, and so there were a lot of times where just be doing shows, so it's work for him, but I was just there, so it's just like, okay, let's go check this show out. So we be eating, we had our little spots we eat, and then we just kind of roll through when it was time,
Right.
like mid show.
Mid show.
Man, oh, I miss those days, man. I miss those days so much because it was just so much fun. And then, just seeing the different artists and stuff like that. And that was always great. So those were some good times. So moving on, I do wanted to, we're going to have two of these in this episode, one now and one before the end of the show. There are two artists that me and Garrick mutually go in for, and they're both our queens, I'd say. We have plenty of them, but these two come to conversation more than anything. And the first one is Brandy, and the second one is Beyonce. Am I lying, Garrick?
You're not lying at
I'm not
all.
lying. So I thought it would be fun to do this with my best friend, and that is rank their studio albums from least like to most like, because I won't say worst to best because I like all the music, so I would never say that. But we're going to rank them from lowest to highest. And then I wanted to also point out that we're ranking the music, the studio albums, and not the era, because especially with Beyonce, those eras matter. So we're not including visual, we're just talking music. So I wanted to point that out and be clear about it. We're going to say Beyonce for last because I know that's what people are going to be listening for. So we're going to do Brandy first. Because I know how the listeners are. So I don't know. I won't even tell you where it is, but we'll do that first. So would you care to start, Garrick?
Ah,
I know it's hard.
so okay. Oof. Brandy, it's okay.
And I love that they both have 6 albums. They both have 6 studio albums. I was like, oh,
Right,
that's
right,
awesome.
right.
Which also means Brandy needs to work a little bit more too, though. Because you're like, girl.
Okay. Okay, let's get into it.
Yes.
And so I went into this. I'll be honest with you. I went into this thinking that you meant the worst. It was hard, but I did get my answers. But I do like that you're giving me the safety net of least favorite.
Yeah.
I do like this.
Yes.
But
Least favorite.
okay, cool. So with Brandy, and I can actually just say that this is her worst album. It's also my least favorite, but it's also just her worst album. We got to go with Human first.
Okay.
And I get it. It's like some of the records on there I've gotten a bigger appreciation for over the years, but I just felt like she wasn't in the most creative space. I think she was distracted. I mean, obviously there was a lot going on in her personal life at the time, so I think she was a little distracted and oddly not trying hard enough, even though her vocal is always something that is like such an effortless thing that like if she does try, it's such a slay. So it's just this weird thing where I just wasn't understanding where she was coming from as an artist. Like she really didn't have much to say. I don't know. To me, her worst. I
Mm.
then go to 211, which is her last album. I think it's awesome. I dug it. I listen to it on a regular basis. Not top to bottom, I will say that. I don't listen to top to bottom. There's a couple songs that I just skip over every time. But it just was another thing where it was like, oh, it was great that Brandy was back. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was shady how she left off the track with Monica because let us not forget, y'all was both supposed to, but you know, Brandy was being petty, clearly. Because that song is so good. And the thing about it is that record matched more of 211 than it did Monica's New Life. So
It
that's why I
did.
just even more confused. Like this track really felt more like a break the same way the boy's mind did. And let's never forget Monica Ultimate Stunt Queen said, well, I'm gonna name my whole album around this.
Right. Which I thought was so random.
I thought it was the pettiest thing. And so for a year, I couldn't really mess with Monica when she did that, especially when she then gave us that album cover with that little boa. I can't do it. But album, as a grown man, I go back and listen to it. I'm like, actually, though, this record slapped.
It
Not hard to
does.
say never. I then from 211, I go to Aphrodisiac. You know, it's one of my favorite Brandy albums. To me, I thought it was her at her most daring, and daring for Brandy is not a huge stretch. She's not someone who's gonna like experiment with that many genres and put it on an album. She'll do it like for fun, but she's not gonna really put it on an album. But I thought it was really interesting that she decided to work with people like Timberland. You know, these folks who had such an imprint on the era of which she came. So it's gonna be really tough to listen to a Brandy and Timberland song and not think Aaliyah. And she knew that, and she didn't run away from that, which I thought was really big of her to do. And so I appreciated the album for that. I thought that, you know, I mean, I this is the album that I think I go back to most frequently because it brings me to a time of I was in high school. I was super, super, super excited for Brandy to like be coming back, you know, and all there was. So, I mean, at that point, Aphrodisiac was the longest that I had waited for a Brandy record. So it was just, well, I mean, I learned as an adult that you will be waiting. But back then, it was the longest that I had waited. So this was something like this was the first, and this is something that I think is so interesting to point out. This is the first album that I ever pre-ordered, and it was on accident. Remember Media Play? Did you have a Media Play? Did y'all have Media
Yeah.
Play?
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like this was something that they did. Like back then, like the earliest that they did was they reserved the copy. Remember they were
Right. The
reserved.
reserve. Yeah.
So the way I was able to get this pre-order is because she had put out a release date and it was like advertised everywhere as this particular release date. So I went to go buy the album the day it came out and there was no album and I was devastated. But what the manager was like, well, you can pay for it now and then it'll come out. And so it was like, I remember even thinking then, which I still think now, is like, oh, why am I going to like pre-order this? Because it's not going to sell out of the store, but you know, whatever. So I remember I paid for it, and I remember they called me when the box came in, and they scanned them, and you have to scan it first to put them out. They scan, and they were like, "Your copy's here." I was on that first bus to Media Play, honey.
Get that
And
album.
it was so long later. It was so long later. So that brings me back to just a special moment of like my fandom for Brandy and like seeing her do something different. She was super sexy on that album. The album art, like everything was just she was really putting herself forward in a way that she hadn't done, and I was like with it. I then go to Brandy, her first record. You know, I discovered Brandy when I was 5 years old. You know, watching Thea. So like learning that she like sang, like the album just makes me happy. It really is like one of those few records that like brings me back to a really early part of my childhood. That's like outside of that, like I really only can get that from like Michael and like Janet and like Mary and like really, really old school. Like she was like the first person that I felt like, oh, this is like somebody that's for me, like created
Mm-hmm.
for for me. You then have to go to Never Say Never, and I feel like that's an easy one just because of the fact of, it's, to me, I think it's her greatest album. I think it's probably her most powerful piece of work, just from where she was coming from as an artist, where she was coming from as a woman. Um, and yeah, I mean, I can listen to Never Say Never every single day. I don't have I could go on and on and on about how much I love Never Say Never, but the number one spot is Full Moon, and why it is strictly because this music is something that, while a lot of her music is timeless, there's not a lot of people who are out here doing her music the way that they're doing her music from Full Moon. I mean, the fact that is an album that we have seen replicated so many times by so many different young women, where the influence of that album speaks for itself. These are some of my favorite records. I mean, oh my God, when she hits us with When You Touch Me Like That, I just think is
Yes.
the best ballads ever done.
Listen, and
And
followed by Like This. Like, why are you doing this to us?
like,
Like, how does it go into Like This?
then,
Like that?
but then it doesn't slow down. She just kept going, kept going, kept going, kept going. So, like, to make this body of work, I just thought it's so incredible. It's so iconic when you do think of this overused word, which it truly is, because you think of how many different women that we're seeing and that we love now have listened to that, and it's like, this is where I'm coming from. I think of, records that Dawn has created, records that Tinashe has created, records that Kalila has created. Like, I think of all of these great young talents and seeing them, pay homage to this album in a way that I don't even think Brandy would probably even like have gotten like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think it's something that now, because she's seeing it so much, she definitely gets it and she's definitely seeing it. But it was just like, I don't know what wavelength she was on on that one, but it's the one.
She was fucking.
So bad.
Listen, we all know what it's like when you first got a piece of little penis. Listen, she was fucking.
Not your first little piece.
When you first get your first little piece, your love is just on another level. Like, you still kind of in that place of like, I'll do anything for you, and you in that like no problem. So yeah, that's what it was. She was getting that thing dug out, and I'm not mad at it.
Not mad at it.
Garrett, your list is literally my list. Like,
is it?
Yeah. I was cracking up. I was like, shit, that is same reasoning. Human was liked it, but yeah, definitely last on the list. It felt like a forced album. And that was probably the longest time we waited since Aphrodisiac. Like, she takes the longest breaks. And then from Human to 211, it was so long. And so, yeah, we had no idea Brandy would do this to us. Like, I thought when Human came back, we were going to get an album every year.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get content after content because it felt like a comeback. It felt like a comeback. But yeah, same order. Everything you said, I agree. So there's no need for me to even dig into that one. So I do think our Beyonces will be different. I feel like mine.
They're gonna be different. They're gonna be,
because I feel like it's like not even controversial, but mine is very specific. And so but Brandy, I don't have any. That's my rank as well. That is my exact rank. Same reasoning and all of that. And see, that's why you're my best friend. Because listen, like, we had the same experience. Like, especially with the Brandy album, it's such a part of my childhood. Like, that cover does something to me.
Oh, it does.
Like, it literally does something to me. I remember, because was I a Brandy fan? I was a Brandy fan when she first came out, but I remember, I think my mom like wasn't or something. I don't know. Somehow I didn't have the album when it came out. But my cousin, you remember when they used to do like those meltdown CDs at the car wash, those tapes?
Yes.
My cousin had a meltdown that she bought from the car wash, and literally she let me have it, and I played that thing out. And my mom caught on. My mom didn't like shady shit. She was like, you about to do that illegal stuff in my house. And so she went and bought me the CD, and I was like, thank you. Because I was wearing out Sunny Day. You hear me? Sunny Day was my jam. So that was my memory with that. But yeah, absolutely with everything you said there. Full Moon is my absolute favorite album. Absolute favorite. And then Never Say Never was just great, period. But I completely agree. Good stuff.
I love this. Yeah, I love that rundown. Can you believe it's been 6 years since 211? It's just like, what?
Listen, I guess she's like Sade. She likes a decade in between every album.
Yeah, but can we not though?
Yeah, can we
Can we?
not? Because I mean, you're getting older now, so it doesn't
Can we
really.
just?
The appeal is leaving.
And especially like at this moment where she's at, like, have you seen her live recently?
I've seen clips. Yeah.
Like she is in such this great pocket of finally standing in herself. You know, she's always been like an artist who sort of kind of has struggled with believing in herself and like confidence, and we've known that. And she's been very open about it. But she's finally in this spot, and I don't know if maybe it's this thing of these past 5, 6 years where you're seeing like at this point over a dozen acts. You know, imagine if Brandy didn't exist, would Control exist? You know, it's these things like that where I think she's now being like, oh, like I've inspired and impacted a whole generation of people who are actually really good. Like that's not, it's not to discount anybody, but like these are all people who are also very, very, very good. And they are going out of their way to talk about what this woman has meant to them. And so I think seeing that as much as she's seen it these past 5 or 6 years, maybe has allowed her to believe in herself a little bit more, because this show, Kevin, is like, it's out of sight how good she is. I mean, also she called up the girlfriend Gatson, who got her clean together.
Yes.
Clean together. While I'm like, oh, she's really bodying an entire set. But yeah, I mean, I've seen her so many times, and right now, this is probably the best she's ever sounded, the best she's ever felt at her show. Like, so I just want there to be a project to
Yeah.
just be like, cool, I'm in the moment. So
Right, and a project where she believes in herself. I remember even Rodney Jerkins said on her Being on Centric. Did you see that?
yes,
Rodney even said that she has these issues where she used to be all about her own sound, but then she gets caught in the mindset of how she thinks people want her to sound. And that
right,
messes her up. And I agree. Like even 211, though a great album, it still wasn't completely her. Like Never Say
right,
Never was like her creation. Like that
yeah,
sound, Rodney and her, that sound influenced music, period. Whitney Houston, Michael
right.
Jackson, everything started sounding like Never Say Never after
It
Never
did.
Say Never.
It did. Remember what Deborah Cox did morning after and said, I'm going to just do a Brandy album and you'll live for it. And I did. And I still live for that album.
It was
But I listen
good.
to it now and I'm like, you really did just say, I'm about to just do a Brandy record. Because that's what's hitting. Like, so I do struggle with, and this is something you see me fight about a lot on Twitter, is like, I do struggle with sort of this idea that like, she ain't shit. Like people really just like take this car accident thing and the fact that, she lied about being married with a baby, where it's like, well, let's just discount her entire existence. When it's like, come on, let's not do that. Like I remember being in like the 6th grade and like my teacher being like, I got you the Brandy doll. Like I wasn't playing with dolls, but she like that's how big she
Mm-hmm.
was. And everybody knew how much I loved this woman. And so like to have that where you didn't think about it now, where it was like, she really did have like 40, 11 dolls, and she
Yeah.
was in movies. She
Cover
didn't.
Girl.
She didn't get killed in the horror film. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Sonya said we're not gonna do that. But you Cover Girl. That arena tour for Never Say Never is still like it was the first concert I ever gone to, and I still like get chills thinking about like what it was like to see this woman. Like she literally descended from the rafters in this jumpsuit, and I was shook down.
Listen, that's one of my favorite stories that you've told me.
Because okay, and I gotta tell it for your listeners, because I did not know what a concert was. So I didn't know she was going to actually be there. I'm not sure why this was how limited my mind was. This is what it's like growing up in the hood. You just don't be knowing shit. So like, I really thought that like we was gonna go somewhere and like they were gonna play the album on a TV. I have no idea why I could not grasp the idea that she was going to be there singing these songs back to me. it blew my mind. Like it literally blew my mind. So when she came down from the rafters in this pink jumpsuit with all these little tiny mirrors, I'm not sure why there was all these mirrors that covered it, but it was cute. And I just was like, you know what? Outside of not peeing my pants, which I thought was gonna happen, like I was so lit up and so hyped that like to get to that feeling is something that is such the magic of a concert. And so I get really upset if I'll go to a show and you've got great music and you just don't have it. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, what's the point? If I've been, and there are artists who are open about the fact that I don't have it. Adele will tell you, I don't really have it when it comes to this live performance thing. And I think she is a sublime performer. And I love the fact that she, talks about, hey, look, I struggle with this. I struggle, I struggle with these fears, these nerves. Cool. But there are some of these people who, like, you will go to this show and it's like, people like my parents spent all that they had so that I could be there. And so when I see some of this stuff happen with these younger kids now where it's like you will take advantage of the fact that they want to be around you so much where you literally are making, well, not them because it's going to be their parents. Like I couldn't imagine being a parent and my kid loving Taylor Swift right now. You're not going to none of her shows. I think she's absolute garbage for making y'all pay all this just to buy a ticket. You didn't even bought the ticket yet, but you're gonna have to buy all this merchandise, all this garbage bullshit, just so that you can say, okay, now I can get a good place in this line to wait for these tickets. There were times I waited in line. I waited in line for 6 hours to see Usher on the Confession Store, honey. 6 hours.
Ooh.
I sat in that line. You know what I mean? Like, so I think of all these, like, how it's just changed so much. And like, I think, yeah, it's great that like these kids are so excited and stuff like that. But like, if I go to your show and I know that Susie Q done spent $300-400 in merch just to get this $200 ticket, and then you come out here and it's funky, I'm gonna talk about you.
Yeah, you need to be talked about because you're
You
on the
need,
sun.
you need to be talked about.
There was a point in time. I was talking about like the influence of Brandy. I remember probably 1999 to be 1999. It didn't matter what house I went to, there were 3 CDs that they had for sure. It was Britney, Oops, I Did It Again,
Yeah,
Destiny's Child, Writings on the Wall,
absolutely.
and Brandy, Never Say Never.
You had those 3.
Like you literally you could just assume. Like you didn't have to bring your copy. They had
you had those 3. You had those 3.
They had it. They had those 3 albums. It was the craziest. And I missed that time in pop music though.
Yeah.
I missed it because it was literally like everyone was involved in it.
Right.
And I think that's what Beyonce still gives me now is that same feeling where most of the world is watching it. You just know. VMAs, everyone's watching the VMAs in 99. Everyone's watching it.
Everybody.
Not so much today, but whatever.
God, you taking me back to a special time. Like, my gosh, when you like dropped everything, because there was no DVR,
Nope.
You dropped everything because you couldn't bring your ass to school on Monday if you didn't see it on Sunday.
Right, you couldn't.
You just couldn't. You just could not.
There was just no way. Oh my! It was such a good time. Like everything was built around that. Like you couldn't wait. Like as soon as the promo came out for VMAs, I would be like so over it. Like I remember, speaking of Brandy, when she performed "Top of the World" for the first time on the movie awards.
Yeah.
I thought that was the next thing to sliced bread. I recorded that, and when I tell you, and it was funny because I knew the entire song before the single dropped, before the video came out. Like I loved it. I was like, come on, Brandy. That was such a good time. And I guess the kids like that are like that now with their artists, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same, yeah.
Because they're not even giving you half of what our artists gave.
Mm-hmm.
Like snippets? Listen, I used to live for a snippet.
Oh my goodness.
I remember the Bills single had Jumpin', Bugaboo, and Say My Name on it. And I remember learning the damn snippets. And then when you got the full album, your mind exploded because the song extended past the 30 seconds that you were used to.
And it wasn't always the beginning of the record, so you didn't know that part that you was already feeling. And when it got to it,
right, you're like, yes!
It popped off in the bedroom. It did.
I missed that time. The snippet was everything, and it was with every album. You're like, oh, what this album giving? And then you already knew the album was going to be lit. I knew Destiny's Child Rising on the Wall was going to be lit. When I heard those snippets, I said, oh, this album is about to go.
I
And
have a,
so,
I have a question for you. Like, this is
yeah.
something I've never asked you as long as I've known you. What was it like growing up in the city where it was all happening? Because like growing up in Cincinnati, like the concept of LA just it seems so far, so untouchable. And yeah, you knew these things were happening there, but you knew nothing else about this city. So you just had this like magical idea of like palm trees and award shows and like celebrities, but like no actual concept of like day-to-day life there. So what was it like, you growing up in the time when all of this stuff was happening, and it was happening where you lived, even though you might not necessarily like been going to the stuff because you were like 8 or 9,
Right.
but just knowing that it was in your backyard versus a kid who is seeing it through a TV but has no concept of what any of this is.
Honestly, something I think I took for granted because I couldn't have thought about you, the kid who were away from it. Like California or LA was all I knew.
Right.
So it's kind of like, oh, this isn't like this everywhere. So in a weird way, I had my own little bias going on because I didn't know any better. But I do remember my family, my sisters who you've met and stuff, they would be involved in stuff. If there was like, it was nothing for somebody like, oh, I was at this rap video shoot because they were always in Compton. I lived 10 minutes from Compton.
Yeah.
So my sisters could easily be in an NWA video or easily be at a Dr. Dre party, easily be at, because they were all like 19, 20. They were of that age where you could be, thoughting about. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So I remember it being very serious. Like even like when Tupac died, that was crazy. I remember anytime there was an award show, everything would kind of shut down because things would be at the Shrine Auditorium.
Yeah.
So, Soul Train Awards. It was nothing for people to be in stuff. Also, I knew a lot of people who were extras and things too.
Okay.
For example, okay, so I know we talked about this, but the Sky's the Limit video, when they had all the kids in it, I was on that set because my nephew Justin, who you've met, he played Slim of 112.
Yes.
And I remember
Yes.
being on that set, being jealous as hell. I'm like, I want to be somebody. I'll be Heavy D or somebody. I remember being on that set for 2 days and just being just filled with jealousy. Because my mom's like, you going to school. You ain't doing all this TV stuff. I'm like, I want to be in something. And it's funny. She let me be in a Tomorrowland commercial. Remember when Tomorrowland got re-upped? Well, you weren't here.
Yeah.
You weren't in LA, but Tomorrowland got re-upped. And I was actually in that commercial. When I tell you, I was afraid for my life. Like I had to get on that machine, one of the rides, and I had to be in the highest one. And I wasn't fucking with heights like that. Listen, I wanted that. I think I was in that machine for like 2-3 hours. I was over it.
But I want this close up though, bitch.
Okay, what right? No, and then when it came out, it was like sped up. I was like, wait, that's some shit. Like, and that's another thing about being in LA. It was nothing for people to be a part of television. Because it was like like you said, it's in the backyard. Like my sister, Davisha, I remember she was on a lot of stuff. She was in Cinderella as an extra. Brandy and Whitney. She was in the Steve Harvey Show. I remember there was an episode where Lovita's cousins were there and they brought their 2 daughters. My sister is one of the girls jumping on the couch.
Oh.
And then Moesha, my niece was in Moesha in those little interludes in between scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was building blocks. I forgot which episode it was, but she was building blocks. And every time it comes on my time hop, I post it. But that was the biggest part of being in LA. It was nothing for people to be like, okay, when I leave here, I'm going to this audition.
Yeah.
But outside of that, everything else was still pretty normal. Like it was still very much a childhood. It was still very much like you just kind of you take it for granted and you don't realize how much you take for granted until you meet somebody who moves there. Like, hell, you showed me more that I was missing out of than I could have shown myself. I was like, oh, okay. It's because it was a different perspective. You don't realize what life is like. And then me moving to Atlanta really showed me the difference too. I was like, oh, okay. Although Atlanta has similarities to LA though when it comes to entertainment.
Right. Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's nothing like my barber, like literally some of his clients could change my life. Hell. So I'm just like, why am I not working this better?
Okay.
So yeah, so Atlanta's like that. So yeah, that's kind of how childhood was. But you got me reminiscing now because
I know.
I just remember, and before I move on, my final thought. I remember when Destiny's Child Rise on the Wall came out, and I was at summer camp. I remember I called my mom every day, and she was like, "If you call me one more time, it's gonna be me and you when you get back." I was just like, I called her I said, "Don't forget to buy Destiny's Child on Tuesday." She's like, "Okay." Called her on Monday. Just want to let you know, don't forget to buy it. She's like, Kevin, you're not even here. So if I bought it when you came back, why would it matter? I just want to be one of the first. And once again, my limited mind. I just want one of the first albums that come out.
You gotta have it.
In my mind, I need to have this album so I can brag that I have it. And I remember calling her every day. Got there and it was right there on my bed. She purposely didn't bring it in the car with her. She's like, you wait this long, you can wait till you get home. I was like, you even bought it in the car with you. I was such a little ungrateful child. It was good times. And I remember that time. I remember coming back and I immersed myself in that album for probably the rest of the summer.
That's an amazing album.
And then as time went by, you found yourself liking more and more songs because when it became singles, you end up liking them even more. And I remember just that entire movement. And honestly, that was my 8th grade year. And that whole year, I mean, that was Pink, There You Go, or Can't Take Me Home. You know, Tamar had her first effort during that year.
She did.
Yeah. I remember all those albums that I purchased. Khalees had recently been out too. But yeah, I remember just that era, and it was a different feeling than it is now. And I don't know, it's just amazing. But whatever, let's move on because I love stuff like that because that's literally what music does. It's just, music was my first friend.
Okay.
It was my first friend. I was like, oh, what's up, Jody Watley? Hey. Because that was it. My mom used to work near a Warehouse Music. And I guess she caught on that.
Okay.
Yeah, she caught on that I was into music at a young age. So she would buy me the compilation videos so I could so instead of cartoons, I was watching music videos. Like I had my Mickey and stuff, but I always wanted to watch. Like I remember she bought me Miss Chalet's video compilation. She bought me BBD, Jody Watley, Janet, Michael, and I would just watch those, all of them, back to back to over again. It was the best thing. I loved the behind the scenes. It made you feel like you knew the artist.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have such an immense love for these artists to this day, especially Janet. You feel like, girl, like since I've been on this earth, I've been seeing you, and so it's amazing. But all that to say, we'll move forward. So December 5th is a very special day. For you, I mean for me because I know you and I'm excited, but your book is coming out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Even though we talked about this yesterday, I've seen a couple people already got their copies, and I'm a little sad about it because I'm like, I don't have mine yet. Amazon is playing.
It's that to me is still so weird. That to me is still so weird how the whole thing works. But yes, December 5th, Parental Discretion is advised. The Rise of NWA and the Dawn of Gangsta Rap. This project, it's just. Well, I've always wanted to write a book. I mean, you've known this. This is like something I've wanted to do since I was 6. And so when the opportunity, presented itself a couple of months before Straight Outta Compton, the film came out, of course I jumped on it. This was a group that, I didn't grow up loving. They were part of my early entry into, hip hop. My brother's 7 years older than me. So NWA, UGK, Outkast, Jay-Z, Nas, those were like the first rap artists that I had ever, heard. And then of course, with the group, it's like you have Dr. Dre and you have Cube, who, you coming up at that time, with a 7-year difference, like those are the albums that are being played. Like though that's the stuff that's around. And so those are the first records that I had fallen in love with. And so funny enough, this goes back to my idea of not knowing what a concert was then. Like I didn't know that the same person I was listening to and on like the Ice Cube or like the Chronic was like the same person that was in this group that I had heard. So I was young. I had no idea. So anyways, this project, the film that was 2015. So it's been about roughly like it feels like 3 years because it's just such a long, arduous process. But it's so weird that it's going to be out in a week. This thing was harder than college, in my opinion. It was harder than every internship that I've had. It was harder than, my day-to-day job, even like my toughest story. It was all of that times 100 million. I mean, it truly was insane. And it was something where it was like, this is something that you you called me out on, not called me out, but like you reminded me that this is something that I do, and like I'm now starting. Since you've said it, I've really thought about it a lot more. Where you made this comment about suffering in silence.
Hmm.
That is something that just in every aspect of my life that I realize that I do, including like this. It was so hard, but like I think I might have like mentioned like, oh, this is like really tough or things like that. But like, when it's really, really, when it was really bad and there were lots of days where it was very bad, I never like called you up and was like, okay, Kevin, I want to quit. It's
Wow.
just something that I just never burden on anybody, like not my mom, like not my partner, like nobody. I mean, yeah, if you were like around in the house with me, like as he was, like he saw it a couple of times, but it was just something where, you know, it really it really felt like birthing a child. And then like I miss that creative part of how hard it was. I miss those nights of like it's 4:30 in the morning and I want to clear my head, so I'm driving around LA, which is finally asleep. This is a city that's so busy, and so I wrote much of it in the middle of the night because that's what worked for me and that's what worked for the process. But also it was really nice to have quiet because my mind was racing so much,
Hmm.
and all these different feelings of self-doubt and anxiety and oh my god, this is so many words and I can't do it, and I'm reading all this stuff and then I read one thing and then 5 hours later I'm still reading on the same subject. All those different things were like happening in my head, and it was just it was so overwhelming. So it was really nice to be able to just drive around the city, recollect, and then come back and then get right back to it. So it's just I don't know. It's so weird. Like I every now and then I'll go like pick up the hardcover, and it's so surreal that I did that.
Listen, there you did. Like, I literally want the book in my hand. Like, I'm just so ready. And when I saw our mutual friend Brandon post that he had his, I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And so, super exciting. And so, also, you were still working your job as a writer, and I think that's the thing too. The fact that you're putting out these phenomenal stories, like your work didn't change. It was very much these consistent stories about current things that were happening in music, and then you're also writing this lengthy book as well.
Right.
That's absolutely amazing. Like, I barely get through my 9 to 5 sometimes and record the podcast, so I can't imagine being up in the middle of the night writing, and then also the editing process. I'm sure is a grueling process as well, right?
It was, yeah. I mean, yeah. On that point of doing this and working, of course, I will never do that again, ever. Yeah, I learned a very big lesson of just about. I mean, I only really and truly got back to somewhat of a normal sleep schedule, which is still for me like not even all that normal, but at least a normal one of like not working through the night, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And the book was due in January. I mean, the editing process, everything after was just as intense as the writing. We were also behind on production. In books, what I have learned doing the hard way is anything anything 6 months and under is considered a crash production. So they're rushing, obviously, to get this thing done. And so we ended up being on a crash production because my editor was behind on another book. And so it's just that was the thing to me that was like so like such a shock, where it was like I met my deadline. My deadline was January 2nd this year. And then it's like we didn't even like start truly editing until March. There was like some light stuff, but then it was like March was like really it. And so there was probably 3 different passes, which is where you go through a whole edit of it, you give it back, then they give it back to you. And that's considered a pass. So there was like 3 of those. And that was up
Ooh.
until August. So
I remember
it's
there was
just
one day we were talking. You were like, "Yeah, we can talk, but I gotta get this done in like 2 hours," and they just got to you like that morning. It was
and
something
then like that is
crazy.
right. And it was like the whole manuscript, and you're like, oh, okay. So then it's this thing of like you're reading this thing over and over and over and over. And you can just always nitpick. So there were certain things where I was like, don't touch this anymore. You know, because if you will continue to touch it if you can, if you're given that time, if you're given sort of that. So that it became a lot of trusting what you wrote the first time you wrote it. And there's things. I mean, obviously, the first draft of this is much different than the sixth or the seventh draft of it. But like, the roughest day for me was like having to redo the first five chapters.
Hmm.
It was heartbreaking, Kevin.
Because you put so
Because
much work in it, right?
and it wasn't just that, but it was sort of this thing of like, oh my God, like if I change something within these first five, what then happens to chapter like six or seven or eight? And it really, the answer ended up being nothing, which is awesome. But also the answer ended up on top of that being like the third chapter became the first chapter. And like that was just such a weird, jarring thing because my day to day, writing feature stories for, a news outlet, you're really only working within one story. And yeah, you might chop that around and change that around, but you're really only working within one story. A book is like 100 different stories in one thing. Yeah, there's a common thread that's happening, but it's really just these small stories. So you going and changing, stuff from before they were in the group doesn't affect anything that you've written on the 80th page. And I just wasn't, I had never had that experience before. And my brain was always so wired and conditioned to like, it'd be one story. And yeah, you change that around, but then it's that one story. And so I kept always thinking like, what happens to the rest of it? And it was interesting. It was such a great learning process. As hard as it was such a great writing process that's made me now go back to my, day to day. And like some of those features that I've written since really turning in this book, like has been some of my favorite writing. I don't want to say best or, anything better than anything else I had ever done. It's just different because I approach it differently because my brain is working differently.
Wow. And also, I think it's cost amazing, like how you got immersed in the process because you had to learn the whole book industry. You had to learn the whole idea of like getting like a deal and all that stuff. I felt like I was
Right.
talking to like a recording star. Sometimes we were talking. I was like, what? So it was definitely a process you had to learn from really, really quickly.
Yes. Super quick.
Yeah. So, question. And
Yeah.
how was your research process? Like how did that go? Like was it like just I guess hitting the ground running, interviews? Like what were some of your tactics?
Yeah. I spent about of straight research, I spent 13 months.
13
Uh,
months.
yeah.
Oh
I
my god.
mean, and that doesn't include the proposal process was about 4 weeks. And so that was, writing essentially what becomes pitched to a publisher. So that was about 4 weeks. And so part of that 4 week was 2 weeks straight of research, but very light research and only research to just map out what could be a potential book. And so once we got the deal, um, yeah, I mean, I really, it was something where nothing was off limits. I really took sort of that college mentality of like, those all nighters that you did in college where you're just reading as much as you can. But it was something where it was different because, you know, research that you normally have to do for, say, if I'm doing a feature on SIS or something like that, like, that's something you can bang out in like an hour, 2 hours. You read as much as you can, you read as much as you read, you watch a couple of videos, and that's really all you really need to do to write, 2,000 words on somebody. But, you're writing 95,000 words.
My god.
So it becomes this thing of like, yeah, you might be looking up, drug trafficking and the relationship between LAPD and citizens of Compton, but then it's like, well, let's take a step back and let's see what Compton was like before the drugs got there, and then let's take a step back before that and see like what it was like for Black people moving to Compton, and then let's take another step back and see where did they live before. What happened before Black folks settled in Compton, and what happened. What was it like in Compton when it was just a white community, and like that was it. So you start, you'll get a topic, I'll fixate on it, but then I start taking step backs. And then as far back as I can, and if I can't go further than that, then I'm like, okay, how important do I feel this narrative is for this? Or something where it might not become, 5 or 6 pages that I'm writing about it. It might become like 2 or 3 paragraphs. So it's really that, but you don't know these things. So that was really, to me, oddly enough, was my favorite part was the research.
Hmm.
I love research. I've always loved research, but going back and falling into these wormholes and like really looking at, I mean, there's not an NWA interview that I hadn't read or hadn't seen at this point. There isn't any text about them that I haven't read. But it was more than that. I mean, it was, all of this stuff was happening, in LA as they were coming up that was really fascinating to like dig deep on. And that, those are the moments where I like when I think of, my favorite times of this book is like what I go back and think of is like those nights of researching and then finding these documentaries. Oh my God, like there's this like have you ever seen Breaking? Like I know you've seen the film, but have you seen the documentary that inspired the film?
No.
So it's really cool to see like Ice-T, who was in the movie, but like to see him, teaching you how to break dance. It's like it really takes you to such this like crazy place where you just because you picture him one kind of way, and yeah, we knew he danced, but we never really got to like see him live in it as well.
Yeah.
And like he was so serious and like but also was very good too. But like, so like those moments were like really cool to go back and like find some of this old stuff and like watch it and like it just really helped brings you back into a particular time. That's why like the Defiant ones threw me so much because a lot of the stuff that I couldn't find, let alone end up being this motherfucker had it and like was keeping it hidden, So that it was cool to see a lot of those moments and like, Eves After Dark and like all that kind of stuff. It was really cool to see, but it was frustrating because I would have liked to see some of that footage, as I was doing this research, yeah, ultimately it doesn't change what the story was. And I am so incredibly proud of the reporting that I was able to do, but it would have just been cool to know that existed, because a lot of us thought it was all lost. There's other people who've done NWA stuff before me. We all thought this stuff was lost. So to see it in this documentary, like this year, like 2 years after all this stuff, it was just sort of kind of like, are you for real, Dre? But that's Dre for you.
Listen, I tell you, I'm still waiting for them Beyonce leaks to happen 20 years from now, and I'm gonna live. I'm going to live.
Those Beyonce leaks are gonna
listen, all that footage.
They're gonna blow you out. They are.
So, question. Earlier in the interview, you said that your connection to NWA was very much through your brother. He introduced you to that because he was older than you. That was the same way it was for me because it was my older sisters and stuff. Now, since doing this book, do you feel a different connection to NWA?
That's an interesting question. Yes and no. I mean, the thing with NWA, like, is as I grew up and listened to the music, I always found myself fans of these guys, but not fans of the music as much. I mean, yeah, there are certain records that like clearly are undeniable, but I do think I think that actually, I think that helped me write this book. I think that helped make a publisher interested. And that was like, I'm not like this huge super fan that's going to like ignore the fact that there was like issues with a lot of this content and like, but so I think that was super helpful. But in terms of like, did I like any of the music any more or less from before? That didn't happen. I'd always felt like Easy was someone who has never got his just due within hip hop. That feeling doesn't change. But what has changed is the fact that I've been able to contribute. And so knowing that feels really good, particularly on the Easy side, because like of all the guys in the group, like I felt like he's always been like this enigma to me because like, I don't know, I guess back then I was like scared of it because it was like so loud and whatever. But then like obviously getting older and really like looking at it and being like, oh, it's like a character, like it's a front, and like, yeah, like you are like a street dude, but you're like not this street dude. Like I remember like, we all remember like that Arsenio Hall interview when he's like in the straight jacket and is like really just wilding out. And so like those different things, like you see like sort of kind of the business acumen, like that he had from a really young age that like all of these guys have modeled themselves after. It's just a great deal of respect that has come in, that it's like, while I admired a lot of it, I was always somebody who was like, I love Ice Cube and I love Dr. Dre, for different reasons, and like you don't really think of them as much, and so that sort of changed a little bit for me during this process. I still feel the same way about the music. There's certain stuff that I love, 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 and then there are certain songs that even as I was working on it, I like skipped it until I had to write about it because some of it made me uncomfortable. Some of it I didn't like at all.
Listen, because I remember there was one song. I think around because around the movie I was like immersing myself into like the deeper stuff. And there was one song, I guess it was Dr. Dre. He was leading and he was talking about being at some movie theater and this girl didn't want to have sex with him. And he goes to another car where the preacher's like 14-year-old daughter's in there giving head. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
And they're running a train on her in the car. I'm like, wait a minute, how is this okay? And I remember thinking like, okay, that's odd as fuck.
Right.
Yeah, so I can totally get where you're coming from. And I also, you made another point about not being as connected to it, and that made it better for you to be objective in the book. I agree with you on that one because me being in LA, we actually were LA for the most part only play LA hip hop.
Yeah.
Like the only exposure to East Coast and West Coast was on BET and stuff like that. Like, we loved Big, we loved Outkast and stuff like that, but it was still different. It was still West Coast that's what you heard when you went to the swap meet or you went to the mall, you went to down Crenshaw. You heard West Coast music. You heard Death Row. And that's all you heard. You heard DJ Quick. You heard MC8. You heard everything that was on the West Coast. The only time I would see Outkast was like on the box when like Players Ball was out. And I remember that being a really big song. But for the most part, it was. So if someone who was from LA wrote it, it would have a different feel. I have no doubt about it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because it would be a completely different thing. Like it's a different type of life. So I totally get you on that one. So that's awesome. So what are you hoping people get from your research in this book? Because we've talked about this before. I think it's great timing because they got a movie, they got a documentary, and now they're getting a book. And that's awesome that you're a part of that trilogy. What is that you're hoping people get from the book?
I mean, really, I just think a lot of dots that have been connected. I just feel while Straight Outta Compton is like one of my favorite, music biopics, and like not just because I was like working on a project about these guys, but just because of what that movie was and what it accomplished and what it showed the world. We can just say that, at a time where, nobody had really seen that, for hip hop. Like, Notorious was like, it was what it was. And it's not a bad movie by any stretch, but it wasn't a moment the way that, the film was a moment. And so that was just really awesome and powerful to see. But that said, I do think that they did themselves a little bit of a disservice by really doubling down on them as like, free speech heroes versus like connecting all of these dots of what was going on around them. I think some of the stuff that was like some of what they show going on around them, it in a movie, it just becomes like it happens to them as opposed to being around them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so being able to have the space to write it and to really flesh out some of this stuff and really explain some of this stuff in a way that you just wouldn't have done in a movie anyways, just because it's not exciting and is for sure not sexy. That to me is like what I hope people take away, the most is like all of these dots that are connected to be like, oh, okay, so this is how some of this stuff was. And then also just to take a further step back and like how comical it is that like these guys are being persecuted for portraying these characters that were actually people that they grew up around. I just thought is just really indicative of like how we've always viewed Black men. And so the fact that they decided to be like, okay, so you like, y'all scared of niggas and you like think we're gonna be niggas anyway, so why don't we just be niggas? And so taking like the most aggressive viewpoint of that statement and turning it into art is genius. And that alone is something that, has always intrigued me about them, especially like as I got older and like understood the relationship between, black bodies and white eyes. And that was something there where, for any one of us who are a certain complexion, are a certain size, and your very existence means a threat because they can't pinpoint what you're doing or what you're thinking, and because of that, then it just must be something evil. It just must be something threatening to them, because like for a lot of white folks, you come into your office and you sitting there shutting the fuck up and doing your job and not speaking to them, they somehow interpret that as like, okay, so what you got planned? Like, are you upset? Are you angry toward me? They center themselves so much when our existence is always just to be, because we've always had to deal with that. And so when you then see these guys who take what that's like and what's around them and push it back on their faces, and not just push it back on their faces, but literally set on their necks with it too, like, and then shoves it on them. And like, as they're sitting here, like, everybody's like wrangling their hands, you then like have their kids who so desperately want to be us listen to the music. So like, you're fighting this good fight to keep it away from who exactly? Because your son is at the show and your son is playing the music and your daughter is doing the same thing. So how are they destroying the moral fibers of America, which is literally some of what was said about these guys? So, you think of just all these different things, and being able to play with all of that stuff and really look at it all these years later, and like to see the lengths that people were going, like, it's hilarious, but also it's kind of like, well, damn, like y'all really felt away.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all
And
really felt away.
and I think that's the sweet spot of just that time period, and not to go too far off of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But you and I talked about this when it came to like Little Kim, like
Yes.
and Foxy Brown when they came out. Like there was so much uproar about how explicit they were. Like there were think pieces. I remember there were segments on like cable channels, and like there was a whole episode that I talked about on the show before that was dedicated to Little Kim and her profanity. And I was like, they really had to. It was more than just singing about sex. It was pushing the movement forward. Now our R&B artists talk about sex freely. Our
Right.
R&B artists can sing about fucking and say just that. K Michelle says just that in her songs. Hell,
Yeah.
SZA talks about it just in her songs. That was all built by that movement. So I get what you're saying, where you look back and be like, wow, this was actually a lot more serious than we're making it seem.
Yeah.
And so it's just very interesting. So that's awesome. So what are any upcoming plans that you have for the book? Like what's next with the process?
What's next is getting out here to see the people.
Yes,
And
the people.
hey, you got to go see the folks. And, I really just want to have like really great dialogue about, Black men, in general, because that's always where I was coming from writing this book, is, knowing that I'm a Black male writing about Black men, at a time where we are still being so heavily prosecuted just for what we look like, and this threat of danger that our bodies have always posed to white America. But then also this irony of like the same people who like are saying that we're like these sorts are the same people who so desperately like want to be us, and like, want to be a part of something, or, even sort of kind of the conversation of like, with them, this whole, the stuff with Jerry Heller was like always such a talking point for people, but it's just like ultimately like it's still white men like wanting to capitalize off of the cool Black thing. We still see that. We see that with anything. Like a lot of this stuff hasn't changed. A lot of the stuff they were talking about hasn't changed. A lot of the stuff of how they were looked at hasn't changed. How many times do people want to bring up, there'll be one shooting at a rap concert, and then like rap is just that you can't go to see a rap show, but like let's just ignore the fact that you can go get shot going and listen to any genre of music. And unfortunately, we have now seen that for basically every genre of music now too. So, all these different things that, was happening then, this is 20 years ago, that's still happening. Yeah, there's a part of you that like, I do get a little angry about some of that stuff, where it's like, well, we're still having these conversations, but also, okay, well, let's have the conversation. But let's also, really have real dialogue about, what these guys were about, why they said the things that they said, why they did the things that they did, what that symbolized for this country, but also what that really, sort of kind of like symbolized for hip hop. And like, it's interesting because a lot of people, I get access all the time where it's like, we don't see you tweet a lot about hip hop. Like, we don't see you like, do you like not like it as much? And it's not about not liking it. It's about the fact that like, I just am so old school with hip hop of all things, just because I want you to have something to say. And whether or not I like what you're saying, NWA always had something to say. Yeah, a lot of it was like, bitch, this shit, this fuck, but like, that alone is political because what they were doing was political, even though they might not have had the wherewithal to know that that's what they were doing. Clearly, there's still something to be said about it. And, you look at, what music is now, particularly hip hop, and it's not always something, there's a lot of guys out there that I really love and I'm huge fans of. And I don't make it a secret of certain people that I'm huge fans of, but there's others where it's like, I don't get it. But also at the same time, like, I'm 30, I'm not 17, I'm not 15. So some of it I'm just not going to get because I'm just too old to get some of it anyways. So, that's something that really excites me about like being able to do this is like, write about an era of hip hop that I like have loved, even though like I was 2 at the time. Like, that's the beauty of music is some of it is never going to age ever.
Right. Wow. That's absolutely amazing. So I'm excited. I definitely need you to have a book tour so you can come through Atlanta because I need my copy. I'm gonna just go post up. I'm telling you right now, wherever you are, I'm just gonna come post up behind the table. Maybe I'll organize the books or something. Like, all right. But I definitely need you to go ahead and fill out that first page for me. I was gonna ship my book to you with the ad. I would have had to stamp and everything and be like, just sign this and mail it back.
Send them back.
Right, drop it in that mailbox. I need a sign for my coffee table.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be pushing forward with that. So I'm excited. Do you see yourself writing another book?
I do, and it's so weird because it's like there were so many days where I like literally was in tears, like, oh my God, I can't do this and I don't want to do this again. But like as soon as I sent it, I was like, I want to do it again. So it's it's so I mean that part of it is still so weird to me to like want to do it. But I think now it's like I spend a lot of time thinking about what I do differently. And like you said earlier, doing this, have a full-time job, that's out. Like I would want to spend like 6 or 7 months completely, just doing this. Cause like it wasn't hard to do, hours and hours and hours of research on top of your full-time job because you're making those hours, But I think once it became the writing, I think that's the part where you can't be doing anything else because it's really, really, really hard to sort of switch gears like that. At least for me, it was really difficult to like have sort of these smaller things I have to do and then go back to this bigger thing that I'm trying to write. Like I just didn't manage that well. So that's something I wouldn't want to do again. But I definitely want to do another book for sure.
Awesome.
But I'd want everybody to be super excited about it. And that's no slight to these guys, but I mean, Dre is somebody who he just was not gonna speak. I chased Ren and Yella forever. Ren just is tired. Like he just was tired of talking about NWA. And I get it, because he felt a way about the movie. He felt a way about, his role in the film. Like I understand it. So I got it. Yella was just never in the country. Like Yella stays booked, by the way. Like but in like weird places. Like, oh, I'm like DJing in Ibiza. And it's like, oh, really? Okay. So it was interesting. And so like so it was like Cube was like so great, and like it was just awesome because like I really, really, really have always loved Cube. So that was really cool to like be able to like ask him particular stuff that I had just always been curious about. Like I had always wanted to know, where the hell was Ice Cube when the riots happened? And like, where did he see like the Rodney King video? Like, you think of these moments and like, he doesn't really talk about it much. So I just was like really interested. And so to get that answer was like, oh my God, okay. Or like, creating these albums and like, so there's certain things that I was like really, really, really excited about getting and trying to get and then getting it, which made me really happy. But yeah, I definitely want to do it again.
Listen, I will be here for you when you do it again. You know, I support it. I still remember the call about the deal. You're like, I'm gonna write a book. I'm like, what?
Right?
And
I know.
here we are. It's about to be released, and that I'm super proud of you, man. Super, super proud of
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
So December 5th, it will be out. You can pre-order it on Amazon. Where else, is anywhere else that they can find the book?
Anywhere they selling a book, you can go get it.
Yes,
Yeah.
go get it. Go
They
get
got
it.
me. They got me together. The other day I was like, I like saw it like translated in like Japanese, and I was like, you better go off. I want to order a copy of this just so I can have it. I don't know what it's gonna say, but I just want to have it. I just want to have. I just want to have it.
Listen, you needed all the languages, all of
All
it. Listen, I'm here for it. I will have a few copies. I am super
yeah,
excited. So yeah, anywhere books are sold, you can
yeah.
pre-order it because Lord knows I pre-ordered mine months ago. So it's just a
Okay.
matter of it getting here, and I'm so excited. Like I'm really excited for you, and it's just
I know.
it's a great
I
first
mean,
project.
in a perfect world, this thing pops up before you hit that plane to Barcelona because you've got a nice lengthy
And
flight.
I could be reading it, but listen, I mean, well, when will it go digital? Do you know?
That is a great question. I believe it's the same day.
Because listen, I will get a digital copy too.
I believe it is the
Okay.
same
Then
day.
no problem.
Uh,
I will get a digital
yeah.
copy too.
Yes.
Well, I'm here
Yes.
for. Listen here. I'm gonna have the t-shirts. Where the merch at? Where is the
What am I
merch?
saying? I want to get merch. I feel like there's always so much cute merch out there that I want to have some merch.
Yeah, get some merch. I'll
You,
take a mug,
yes.
a
Give me
little
some.
koozie.
Give me some ideas. Give me
Oh,
some ideas. We'll get together and get a little merch situation because I need to have some merch.
seriously. So yeah, I'll get the digital copy and I can have that on the plane
Eh,
because Amazon's playing. When I saw Brendan had his, I said, "Excuse me."
Excuse me.
Whatever. Super awesome, super awesome. So wish you the best on that. So, but before we close the show, we have one more ranking to do,
Oh my
which
God.
for a lot of
Yeah.
people is a big one. And
I
this is
know.
going to be Beyonce's studio albums. And remember, it's music, not doing eras. I'll actually lead this one because I know it's going to be different.
Okay. Good. Okay. Good.
I'll lead this one because, yeah. So, number 6. They both have 6 albums. I think that's amazing.
Right.
So it works out. So number 6 for me would be I Am Sasha Fierce.
Mhm.
It was a necessary album. It was so
Mhm.
necessary for her to become who she is now. That was
Okay.
a huge pop crossover album. And honestly, I was researching last night. Her biggest hits are on that album.
Yeah.
Like as far as like the span of time, like Halo, Single Ladies, If I Were a Boy, and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, it was a necessary album. I love it. But what it is there are a lot of moments that I don't necessarily need. Like that whole first diss, I kind of skipped through that. Like
You skip through it.
I skipped through. I like the songs, like, but
Yeah.
I don't care for Satellites. I don't care for Ave Maria. Disappears okay. I love Smash Into You,
Right.
which I feel like The Dream did that. I was so
Yeah.
shocked when I saw him on the credits. I was like, what? Love it. But that album was a necessary piece for her. There's so many jams on it for sure. But when it comes to like skipping tracks, I definitely skip tracks on it. And that's what I base it off of is music. That was a
Okay.
necessary pop album that was needed.
Okay.
All right. Number 5. This is actually, this is hard for me. Like, I think it's harder than Brandy.
Yeah.
Because a part of me, the stand in me feels like I'm betraying something. Like, they're all number 1. I feel like I'm going to get my ass beat as soon as I leave the door. Somebody going to be waiting for me like, how dare you ever rank?
They're all number one.
Because I love all these albums, but it's necessary. Okay. So this is where it gets really interesting. Number 5. I thought this one, but it's Lemonade.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 5 for me is Lemonade. I feel like Lemonade visually is the shit.
Right.
Visually, the whole movement is everything. And that is if it was about that, it would be number 1. It would contend with other ones that I'm going to mention. It would. But musically, I realized that there are some drop off moments with Lemonade that I appreciate, but don't necessarily need.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I heard the album by itself with no visuals, it would just be different. Like I enjoy, I enjoy Sorry, I enjoy all these songs, but there are some points like honestly that I skip. Like I typically don't sit through all night. I like it, but I can actually go back. I can skip right on the Formation. The same with Freedom. Love it to death. Love the performance of it. All of that, but I don't need it every time. I don't need that anthem every day.
You don't need it every day.
I don't need it every day. It's like one of those things you appreciate the anthem, but I just don't need it. Like it's like
Okay.
yes, and then once it's over, okay, skip to Formation. Formation is probably one of my favorite songs of hers, though. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Because that song has such an impact. But there were just a lot of moments like that where it's like I like it. I'm definitely gonna get my twerk on. I might add to my run playlist, but it's not as memorable musically for me. It's one of those areas where I'm like, okay, whatever. So then that brings us to number 4. 4 would be Dangerously in Love.
Okay.
Make sure I'm saying that right. I'm going through it in my head. Yep, 4 will be Dangerously in Love. That album was, it's the debut album. And there's such a connection to it for me. It was kind of her most R&B album, really. And it just shows you where she started, but yet it was still very she was still pushing forward. No Beyonce era sounds like the last. And I appreciate she was very much like Janet with that, where every era has its own kind of moment. And Dangerously in Love was that for me, but once again, those last few tracks, I don't need them. Like Gift from Virgo, okay. Daddy, all right. Like I don't like you appreciate them, but it's like I'm sleepy.
Because it made me laugh because the other day I was listening to the record and Daddy came on and I think the pits of my stomach almost came out of my damn mouth. I was like, girl, no, never. I didn't make it. I didn't make it to the chorus.
It's so awkward, right?
Make it to the chorus.
It's so awkward. And a lot of people have that as their number 1. There are people who will argue her debut
Yes.
album is like the best ever. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's not my number 1 though.
Mm-hmm.
So then, okay, so that brings us to the top 3. Now this shit was
What's
hard.
your top? Yes, what's your top 3?
This shit was hard, and I think I'm still being challenged by it because it's difficult. But okay, we're sticking to music. Okay, so I feel like I'm betraying something. Okay, number 3 would be Self-Titled.
Okay.
Because once again, huge album, loved it, but there are certain songs I don't need, which is Heaven, Blue. I wasn't a Superpower fan. I was not. But also, I enjoy Frank Ocean. I don't have that crazy loyalty that everybody else has to him. So that's my thing. And I feel like people are like, oh, Superpower is so good. But Beyonce was a huge movement. I love like that. Like, listen, the jams, like the first 9 tracks slap hard. But it has that same kind of drop off that I don't like, where you're just like, I don't really need Heaven, Blue. Like, I don't like, it's cool. I get what they're for. They're tribute songs. It works out. It's cool. But I don't need them. But the era, that would also be Head and Hair with Lemonade for me because of the visuals that came with it.
Yeah.
But musically, it would be my number 3. But still, one of my favorite go-to albums is actually in my car. Funny thing is, my top 3 albums are actually in my car. So then number 2 would be 4. Because
okay.
because 4, it got back to her digging into her vocals and giving you giving you that push again. And then it has less of that drop off I was talking about. The only drop off on this album was I Was Here. And love it. Love it. Love the song. Great song. But also, it's just one song that I skip where it's like, oh, I don't need this right now. And everything else I play right the fuck through. And number 1 is B-Day. And here's why. B-Day, and it might just be connection to memories for me, but it was such a movement. And Beyonce has given us so many iconic things, but I feel like musically that showed us some of her best creativity because she was working with fucking Swiss beats, whose beats aren't traditional. They're not really R&B beats, and are not things you can necessarily sing to. I don't think so. Hearing her create these fucking melodies and hooks to Get Me Body, like how she was singing on that beat that someone could be rapping on, or even Upgrade You, like the bridges and how she was formulating these, like going high and low. And she really did these crazy ass things to these beats. And it was just, it was a moment. That was my 21-year-old self, like partying in the club to every track on that album. I skipped nothing on that one, maybe listen on a good day, but I skipped
Mm-hmm.
nothing on that album. It's just an iconic piece of work. And that kind of let us see where she was going musically because it was so different from Dangerously in Love. And
Mm.
then it was a moment for me, and it's my favorite album. Like it always puts me in a good mood. I know I'm gonna do about 12 different dance routines in one album.
Okay.
That was a lit album. Freakum Dress, Dangerously in Love, not Dangerously in Love, Freakum Dress, and Upgrade You, all of that. So yeah, so that is my ranking. And that was hard as fuck. Brandy was easy.
Yeah.
That one was difficult because I had to really separate from her progression as an artist as far as the eras and how much she gave us visually and really dig into the music. So
Yeah.
what's your lineup?
Oh my gosh, it's so different. It's so different. I love it.
I told you it would be.
So yeah, I mean, I think we both agree on least favorite. Was the I Am album. My particular issue with it was this. I think that double albums are always ambitious. I always think it's great. I think she cheated on that a little bit, at least on the standard
Because there's only
edition,
eight
where it
tracks,
felt
right?
like, yeah, I was like, well, this is really two EPs, but okay, sis. But, you know, yeah, I mean, it did symbolize a lot. Of course, it catapulted her into this, pop stratosphere that she hadn't existed in yet. And so that was just cool to watch as a fan, as a huge fan of hers from the beginning, Destiny's Child. So it was really cool, the first time you saw the Single Ladies video, all these different things, but that's again, that's a visual. The music itself, I love the up tempos more than some of the ballads. Like we both look at like Smash Into You, Hello are like my favorites, but like she was going through this phase where she was wanting to sing Ave Maria everywhere she went, and I don't
And
know
it didn't
why.
work. I'm like, it's not Christmas. What's
So
happening?
it's not Christmas, and I just do not understand what this song is. Like I truly don't know what this is supposed to be. So there was some moments there where I just was like, no. And then it was interesting because a lot of my favorite records from that time of hers is not on the album. So like Poison, Control, like, New Shoes, like Kick 'Em Out, Save the Hero, like all these records that I just was like, well, you should have put this on the album. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but so that's why to me that's my least favorite. From there it goes to Dangerously in Love. You know, there's only a couple records that I am a huge fan of for that album. I was excited, of course she's out, she's, solo, whatever. But like a lot of it, like, I was telling you, like, with Daddy the other day, like I went and listened to, That's How I Like It the other day, and I was like, oh my God, this song is so corny and so dreadful. I can't. And and like hip hop star, like I cannot with you right now. Like I just truly cannot. But also, you're super young, so it is. It was just one of those things where it's like I don't think it's any better or worse than like a lot of teenage solo debut. Like I don't like. It's fun. It's a fun album. There's certain songs there. Listen, I want to see you perform Naughty Girl until the day I die. Okay, so there's not, I don't have issues with it. It's just, that's why it's not at the bottom of my list. From there, I do go to B Day, which is interesting. That's tie up on yours. I love B Day a lot. It is one of my favorite Beyonce records. It is one of the albums that you can obviously listen to top to bottom. Just for me, I just felt musically it was what you expected of her. And while that's great, there's other records where I was like, oh shit, she just does that. So just strictly on the music, I mean, oh my God, the visuals, oh my God, remember the first time you saw the Sugar Mama video and the first time you saw the Get Me Body video? Like
Yeah.
she was on a whole other place, and like
The
the
fact that she
reason
was releasing that compilation was huge. I'm like,
it
oh,
was
you on some Michael Jackson shit. Okay.
let's not forget when she got a little trouble when she took home girl
Oh,
song.
listen, Desiree said you will
Desiree
not. You
said,
will not.
Desiree said, you will not mess up my Romeo and Juliet ballad is what you will not do. I want it back. I never said we could do a visual to this. I said song cover only, young lady. But no, but like, so what that moment was like, to me, when I think of, I've gone to all her tours, and that show was just, oh my God, it was so great. It was really, 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 really so good. Like you saw this woman becoming a superstar, and like so I love that record a lot. I go from B Day to Lemonade. I go to Lemonade. Lemonade is number three of like my favorites for her because of the fact that she had gotten so experimental. This is an album where she's trying folk, she's trying country, she's trying, rock, she's trying all these different things that she just had not done. You know, yeah, I don't think the music is as strong for everybody, and I do recognize that now. Even though this is, I mean, I think I listened to Lemonade probably more than a lot of her records, just because of all the different voices that I'm getting, all the different things that I'm getting, especially those first like four records where it's like, oh wow, you're giving us so much, and it was like it wasn't, it didn't feel indulgent. And Beyonce, as much as I love her, she is an artist that a lot of times she does give into her own indulgence, and so sometimes, and when I say that, sometimes I think back to like a record of like I Am, where it's like, oh girl, we don't, okay, cool, 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 but no, we don't need all this. So I love the fact that she put out a very taut album, and it's like there's still not a million bonus tracks. She didn't do all this different stuff, but she really, this is the project, this is the music, this is it, and that had to have taken a lot of restraint for her. Like, I
Right.
mean, it's Beyonce, but like, I mean, think about how, like, think of all those unreleased tracks that we probably both got. You know what I mean?
Listen,
Like, think of
all of
all
them. Like
for
my
every.
Beyonce section on iTunes looks silly. It's like 400 tracks. Okay.
It's just so much music, and so the fact that it's like that, the fact that she was able to show that much restraint at this point in her career, I just thought was really special. I thought it was really awesome. From Lemonade, I go to four. I disagree with something you said earlier. I think four is her most R&B record,
Oh,
and traditional. She was trying to do contemporary R&B and also be a little bit forward, and I think some of that got lost. I mean, I will never forgive her for coming out with Run the World first, because I just didn't think that really showed you
yeah.
what the album is about, and like that's a great record, or truly, that ends it. Like, and it's so weird and so jarring even still, where like it's over and then it's like I was here, where it's like, well, what are we doing with these last couple of tracks? So, that said, though, I just think of, this music and how comfortable she sounds on this album, where it's like, you know a lot of my favorite songs of hers, period, are on this, because it's like you think of I Care and like I Miss You and like 1+1, like just the singing that she's
Yeah.
doing.
I agree
I,
with you on that. You're right. It is a little more R&B.
yeah, throwbacks of like, like Start Over, where it's like it's forward thinking, but it's also really retro in the same way, and like, Rather Die Young, and like, Countdown, which is just going to always be one of her greatest songs of all time. I still don't understand why End of Time wasn't a single. Particularly why it wasn't the first single. I would have led with that. Like, I still see the video in my head. Girl, why the fact you wasn't in Africa giving us Coming to America, or even just redoing the Remember the Time video, because let's be honest, a lot of what she does visually, we might have seen.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, she
yeah.
gives she gives you a good homage.
And then also that
Sometimes.
album came out right before it was like fall, or like it wasn't like cold, and they were talking about that was she released a summer track in the middle, or was it
Yeah.
the opposite? Was it
Yeah,
summer?
it was something. It was a weird thing with
Yeah, and then because there was a whole piece about it where it was like she should have gone with this single because it was this time period. It was like a weather thing. Because I think Adele always has one with that because she always releases her shit like fall, winter,
right.
and catch you right when it's lonely as fuck.
Right when you lonely, you ain't got nobody to cupcake with. Yeah, you sad. She got you. And then obviously my favorite of them all is self-titled. And it's interesting too because it's like I don't watch those visuals as much as I maybe watch like Lemonade visually.
Mhm.
But the music of self-titled, you know, she finally dismantled herself for us. And she's doing it, yeah, while at least visually that was a huge part of like what she had always been doing, but like musically it's there. And a lot of people just pass off that album as like she's like making a sex record for like her husband. And it's
But
like,
it was
okay,
way
yeah,
more than that though.
it's so much more than that. And I think her dismantling her own image on record makes that so special for me. And a lot of this music I just love so much. Like I still, I listen to Mine all the time. I listen to
Mhm.
Angel all the time. I think of all these things she was doing and she was trying. Like Blow, like oh my god, like just the breakdown on Blow, just that alone. Like oh
Yeah.
my, what are you talking about right now, B? Like you really gave it to us. And the fact that she was able to do this type of work, make this statement artistically, but then also reclaim the album event, reclaim this moment of, what it is like to put out a record to the masses, by doing what she did. It still blows my mind. It's still, when I think about it and I think of the excitement of what that was. And it's like, I don't know, it's still, to me, that like makes me excited where like really and truly, it was like fuck radio. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, a lot of that you learn because four should have been different than what it was. And so I
Mhm.
think that changed her attitude a little bit. And she talked about that and the HBO documentary where yeah, obviously she did her own course correction because you're thinking of the fact of like radio is going to really, relegate me to these one or two things, but then you think of like how Drunken Love like really and truly was one of those like cultural moments, but the song isn't a huge hit. So that's why, I argue the way that I argue with like a lot of like stan culture because they just think to them, if it's not number one, then it doesn't mean anything. Or if it didn't sell 4 million copies and all these different things that it's just whatever. There's like two artists that can do it. No one else can. It's Taylor and it's Adele. Whatever. But do those songs last the way that some of this music has lasted? They don't. And that's just not even something to debate. It just truly does not. It doesn't redefine a moment. It doesn't change how music is then produced. I mean, even just alone of you think of like after the Beyonce album, like how many other artists changed what they were doing
I mean, we
musically.
have global release date now, which is
Or even
Friday. So
exactly, even like, before that, when you think of four and you think of how many other artists said, well, oh, Beyonce is doing straight up R&B. Well, I can do straight up R&B. You know what I mean? Like all these different things that happen. And it might not be this huge in your face thing, like Single Ladies, where everybody's trying to do the dance and everybody's doing the hand. That's a different type of cultural moment. These other things that are lasting, that are much more permanent, and that goes back to Brandy, that matters more. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like Brandy, by no stretch is Brandy like a top 10 selling R&B artist. That's not, maybe I don't even think she's probably top 20. You know what I mean? When it comes to females, but that influence stretches further along. Janet, I mean, oh my God, like when you get into this whole thing of like, well, sales, Janet doesn't sell anything really on top of when you are putting her in the same conversation of Michael.
Mhm.
But that
It's
influence,
still impact though.
there is no one more influential than Janet, and we still see it. We still see it. We still see these things being redone and re-replicated. And so Beyonce is an artist who is doing the same thing, and the fact that she's able to do it while always paying, homage to what came before her, even though some people just say it's copying, some people think it's stealing, whatever, however you stand on that, it's clear what she's doing. And that is also, to me, part of her brilliance as well.
Oh my God. I listen, I agree. I absolutely agree. And like I think about that too, because people love that. I remember when Lemonade came out, I went out that night and people online talking shit. Like Beyonce ain't even relevant no more. I'm like, you sound so stupid. Like everyone didn't get here to this club until Lemonade was over on HBO.
Right, right.
Like the reason this place is now popping because everyone is done, and people get delusional with their hate too. So it becomes this whole she doesn't sell, and it's like you said, that does not matter. But everybody was saying surfboard, okay? Everybody was using the line from Partition. Like even with Lemonade, everybody wanted hot sauce in their bag. Everybody wanted to get information. It's like there's everyone's saying I slay now, like more than ever. And these
Right.
are things that people forget. So if you think just because people aren't buying albums, that doesn't make any sense. Because first of all, we're in a different time period. We're
Yeah.
in streaming culture. We've been in streaming culture. And so you and I talk about this all the time. You get tired of hearing people use these old conversations from '92 in today's industry.
Right. Yeah.
Like we can't go out and purchase "I Will Always Love You" for Music Play. You know what I mean? It's not that time anymore. It's not how it works. A lot of niggas don't even want to buy music to this day still.
I mean, and just how many people really do be thinking like, well, I spend $9.99 on Apple Music a month, so like I'm doing something. No, you're not. Like, no, you're
You're
not. Yeah,
not.
you're enjoying the music, and yeah, you're accessing it. But if you really think that artists are walking around with like your 9.99, no, like stop. Why do so many people think that? Where it's just like they really do be thinking that like this 9.99 that allows me to access all this music that I might play once or twice, and then like when the next thing comes out, I play that once or twice. That somehow an artist has gotten some money off of me
Right,
playing it
that's support.
on your stream. Like, you know what I mean? Or even like, quite frankly, for a lot of them, you went and bought it. Okay, yeah, you went and paid $13 for whatever it is at Target. They're not getting $13. So like this concept of like I'm paying your way through life, so you must be at my beck and call on Twitter, and if I see you, you must sign something for me. If you don't get the fuck out of here,
Let's
like
like
it's just
I've gotten into not even debates with people, but people who feel that way. And I'm like, you do realize these are humans, right? Well, that's the life
yeah,
they lead. I'm like, they don't have to. You don't own them ever. It's art.
it's art.
You buy the art. That's what you own, or that's
Yeah.
what you license. You don't own it. That's what you license. Outside of that, they don't fucking belong to you. I'm so glad you covered that. And it's funny because you and I have had a conversation. I always said I wanted to talk about that on the podcast. So I'm glad that you touched on it just
You
that
know.
much because I've been wanting to touch that for a while.
Because it's so crazy. You see this like delusion that exists like in these spaces that like now like, and I think I obviously come at it from a different perspective because yeah, ultimately I am a huge fan of this. That's what has driven me to want this as a career. That is what has kept me in this industry as crazy as it is. But then also I do have the privilege, which I obviously don't take for granted, but I do have the privilege to then be around these artists and have these conversations with them. And they think y'all crazy. So it's like that's the concept of like y'all on here like fighting to the damn digital death because y'all ain't doing nothing. So y'all all just sitting here behind your little fingers tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping. And I'm gonna kill you and you this and you that and you ain't shit and this Navy is this and this Hive is this and all this stuff that y'all are doing online. It's just laughable because if you all think that these artists actually even care that you're doing that, you are losing your mind. Like you are absolutely losing your mind. They are not giving a single fuck that you are sitting on Twitter all day fighting about them. Like they are just not.
Thank you for covering that. See, yes, this is yes. Agreed, because it gets out of hand. It's draining to the point like I'm not even gonna invest my time into this like
Yeah.
anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Well, that was awesome. Can you tell people where they can find you, Garrick, online and stuff?
Come holler at me on Twitter at Garrick Kennedy. Same for Instagram, same for Facebook. It's all the same on all three of those platforms. If you really are so inclined, it's very easy to find my email if you want to shoot me a holla. But also my um, personal site is garrickkennedy.net if you want to keep up with what I'm writing or reach out for anything. Obviously, Parental Discretion is advised is out on December 5th, everywhere books are sold. I really am hoping that someone will find it in an airport bookstore and send me a picture, or else I'm gonna have to be at LAX like on a regular basis trying to go. But LAX is a lot. So I want to see if it's like at Hudson Books. So someone send me a picture if you catch it in a book
Yes.
airport. But yeah, those are all my socials. That's where I can be found. And yeah, let's chat.
Yes, I'm so happy you're on the show. Thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank
It's
you for
such a
having me.
moment,
Yes.
for the key, but then also because I'm still a huge fan of your work. We've had very lowbrow moments together, and like
And
friends do. But I still respect you and your craft, and I'm always so proud of you. So this is another thing on the list, sir. So congratulations.
thank
All
you.
right, you guys. You guys know where to find me, The World of Kevin, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also, follow the Outline Podcast sites, also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember to take your favorite quote from the show and tweet it with the Outline Podcast hashtag. And I'll talk to you all in 2 weeks because I'm on my way to Barcelona. I'm so excited. So, super fun. All right. With that said, we're out. Peace out.